Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. I was just up early this morning going through the comments as I try to do. I really appreciate when you guys, comment on the videos. And I know we just had that big video with the 5 new upcoming IPOs. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely check that out. But anyways, going through the comments, and obviously there's a recent theme I've been seeing, which is a lot of people are very happy with Palantir Stock and how it's done over the past couple of weeks. So I thought this morning, got my coffee in me, and I thought maybe we could just do a quick video talking about, how we've gotten here and what's the reason. And I think that this video is really one where I want to see more comments from you guys, because I'm not 100% sure I know why. We're going to work through this together. And so again, if you haven't started with your coffee yet, fill it up and we'll get into it. So as you know, we did a lot of videos preparing for the direct listing by Palantir. I did a very comprehensive video right before the stock started trading. And then we did a live stream the night it first traded. And in that, just as a little bit of review, one of the things that I felt was that I had an idea, because we had talked about the valuation of how the stock was trading on the private market. And then once the direct listing started, a lot of people obviously, expected the stock to be higher. And I remember on the live stream being asked about if I thought that the price was good or if it was overvalued or whatever. Because as you know, a lot of times when the stock first starts to trade, it goes up and then it drops. And my thought was that while I thought that because of the tendency of a stock to trade a little bit higher initially, that it could go down a little bit. And I thought that the stock was trading pretty fairly, even on that first day. Because when you look back to where it was trading on the private market, and of course you always have to add in that boost once it's public, because the liquidity increases the value of the stock because you can sell it much easier and there's more of a market to buy it. So I thought, considering it was around that $7 range, which is what Palantir set their reference price. So then when it was at $9 to $10, I thought, okay, that's pretty acceptable. Now, obviously for the next month, the stock didn't do much. It sort of stayed between that $9 and $10 range. And so again, a lot of you guys were probably, really looking. And why do I think that the stock did not come out gangbusters? I think there's a few things. I think we've talked about this a little bit. One is that, by being a direct listing, they didn't have the whole roadshow, which really does go along to hype the stock up. And so they didn't have that. Now they did an investor day, did a webcast, which you guys were able to see, and we talked about that. We shared that on the channel as well. And so, but there wasn't that hype. And then there's also some of that negative publicity out there about the company. So right before the company started to trade, we did that comprehensive video and we talked about some of the issues that could impact the stock. And there were some things that, I mentioned that I wasn't very concerned about. Okay, so the stock starts to trade, and for the first 4 weeks, it doesn't really do anything. It's in that $9 to $10 range. And one of the things that first started, and I have some little lists here I'm going to reference, on October 26th is when the quiet period ended. And you guys know that when we do IPO this week, we know our weekly show, again, if you're new here, you haven't seen it, we talk about the quiet periods ending, because that's the time where market research reports can come out. And so that was one of the first bumps that we got. So again, if you're looking at the chart on the screen, you're going to see that, okay, the stock goes up a little bit, and that's typical. And again, another reason why we talk about them. Doesn't mean every time that's going to happen, but most of the time when there's a market research report comes out, it's from the people involved in the company. And so odds are, if they're involved with the company, more than likely they're probably having a positive view of it. So again, quiet period was the first little jump. So then we see the stock starts to rise, through the 5th, the 6th, and the 9th. We're starting to get closer to the earnings, which are coming out on the 12th. So we see it again, it rises. In fact, it rises over $15 for the first time. Earnings come out, and to be honest, they're good, but they're not fantastic. And so let's just quickly talk a little bit about the earnings. So one of the big numbers that was probably very positive and people took really well was the year-over-year revenue increase. I mean, it was up 52%. So again, that was very positive. But the net loss also increased, and that obviously wasn't good. In fact, it increased almost 400%, up to 94 cents per share. And that was after an 18 cent estimated loss. So again, that goes up. Now, some of that loss is that one-time, expenses related to the direct listing. So they had a lot of, costs for that. So we'll keep that in mind. The guidance went up some, but not really drastically from where it was. I think it was, you talk about over $1 billion revenue, which they had talked about that was their expectation. Really hasn't changed. Basically, over the year, or for the year, they were expecting another maybe 2 million added on top of that. So when you're talking about, again, over $1 billion, 2 million, while that's good, you're always going in the positive direction. Was it enough to really drive the stock forward? I don't know. I would say no, but again, just my own thoughts on that. Year-over-year revenue guidance is expected to be over 30% for 2021. That was expected. So again, they sort of maintained that guidance, maybe increased it a little bit. But overall, that's what we were expecting. So when you look at this report from the earnings, revenue was up, which was expected. Losses were up, which not to the level they were expected. And the guidance continued to be strong through 2021. But again, that was sort of expected. So while I think it was a good earnings report, I don't think that that's enough to drive the stock. Because again, we're talking about going from about $10 a share to now, as of the close yesterday, over $21 a share. So again, just sort of working our way through the chart, looking for the jumps. So going back to the 11th, the stock price rises, anticipation of the earnings, actually drops the day of the earnings. Again, you never know. There's been a little bit of a jump, so people start thinking, let's take a little bit of profits, because we're getting around that $15 mark. And earnings come out. Price goes up a little bit the following day. Starting next week, the stock jumps up more. And so you have to wonder, are people really starting to look at the earnings and seeing more out of it than there was at first glance? And my thought, again, is that the earnings were solid, but not great. And it's hard to say because, we went into this direct listing at the same time, basically, Snowflake was coming out. So everybody has all the hype behind it. Again, sort of took advantage of the roadshow, but also just people just been going crazy for Snowflake for a long time. So that price popped right out of the gate. And now what's happened, obviously, you're seeing this in a range where it's been hard to push it higher. Whereas with Palantir, they came out, again, pretty much at what I, again, said was a pretty fair price, and now it's going up. So now some earnings come out, they look good, which again should make the stock go up. We had the positive reaction from the market research reports, so again, should make it go up. So not surprised to see us get to that mid-teen range. At this point, though, the stock doesn't stop. So again, when we're looking at the chart, and this is where we start getting some news. First of all, on Friday, we start hearing that George Soros' fund owns some shares. Now, there was some question of when he owned them, and now apparently he's owned them before from many years ago and is looking to divest them, doesn't agree with the company, which we talked about in the comprehensive video about the politics of it, and we'll touch a little bit back on it at the end of this video. But what we also heard is that there was another big stake into the company, and that's from Daniel Lieb's Third Point, who holds 2.4 million shares. On Monday, more news comes out that Steve Cohen's Point72 Asset Management disclosed it acquired 29.9 million shares of Palantir, leaving them with a 2.6% stake in the company. And then another big disclosure, Anchorage Capital Group acquired just under 3 million shares for a 0.3% stake. So now you're seeing all this news of some big funds acquiring Palantir, which obviously to ordinary investors looks good, and you think, okay, if it's good enough for them, and I've looked into the company and I believe in them, I want a part of it. So again, the price starts to go up, which is how it works. And then moving on to the 18th, news came out that Palantir was awarded a contract from the U.S. Army for a network modernization project. And then, of course, over the weekend, we had the stock just continue to jump up, where again we closed over $21 yesterday. Okay, so that sort of gives us to where we're at. As you guys know, I'm not a fan of any company to the point where I will rah-rah anybody. Now, I know a lot of you are on this channel because of the coverage of Palantir. And I always try to tell you what I think are the positives and negatives of every company. And it's not that I don't like companies more than the other, but that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to tell you, this is who I think, this whatever. This is about trying to give you the information or trying to give you some of the thoughts that I have. So, again, going back to where we were, we were at that $9 to $10 range, which again I thought was fair at the time, and there was some upside. But I also want to get back to that full analysis that we had right before the stock trade. And there's a few things in there that I talked about were potential factors. One was the company's governance structure, which a lot of people in the media covered and how terrible that was. And I told you right there, I did not feel, again, not being an activist investor, did not think that was going to be a big issue. Another factor was the political nature of the company. And again, now one of the reasons why George Soros talks about wanting to get rid of the stock. We talked about the controversies with ICE and immigration. And I told you also did not think that that was a factor for me. The election, I told you I did not see that being a big factor. A lot of concerns, and I was reading in the comments, was that, if Biden was to win the election, that the company would really suffer. And I just not feel that way. And so I think what we've seen is the stock has gone up. That's sort of, I don't want to say proved me right, but it's sort of shown that those were, not huge factors, just like I didn't think they would be. But now that the stock has gone higher, we have to ask, why. And again, we sort of went through some of the background of why, how we got to where we are over the past month. But I also want to revisit the things that I had some concerns about, which I felt could limit the upside of the stock. And I want to see if we feel that that's changed. So one of the things that I told you I liked about the company is that I felt that its government business was strong. And again, we just talked about how the U.S. Army, there was another contract there. And we also learned that the NIH, or National Institute of Health, awarded another contract to Palantir. But we talked about one of the concerns was the limit of the growth on the commercial side. And while the company did report that there was a little less concentration of revenue at the top, but from the commercial side, there was reports of a $300 million aerospace contract. And so, again, don't know the company. There's only so many of those out there. But regardless, we ended up finding that was a renewal. So it wasn't like it was a brand new contract. So the way I look at it is, well, that's good. You don't want to lose any contracts. I'm still not seeing a lot of growth on that commercial side. Now, that doesn't mean that they're telling us all of that, because again, the nature of the company, sometimes what they're doing isn't out for a lot of publicity. I get that. But the concern I have is, where can they grow that? Because I think that's the opportunity from the company. And again, still just not seeing that. That makes me a little cautious, but again, not a deal breaker, because I felt that the company, when it was at that $10 range, and again, a little bit even up over that, I thought was very fair. Show me some private sector growth, and it's off to the races. Again, not really seeing that. And as we see, and again, from the earnings, very solid, but again, not what I feel is enough to drive the price to where it's gone, being up over 100% over the past few weeks. So again, in that comprehensive video, I said that there was two big factors for me. One was the growth on the commercial side, which again, just not really seeing. And the second, what price do I think it should trade at? And based on the valuations it was going into the direct listing, how it's been trading on the private markets, giving it the boost for becoming a publicly traded company, I thought the range was going to be upper single digits to mid-teens. Now we're over $20. And I start to wonder, why is it so much up there when I did not see the private sector growth? I saw earnings that were solid and not great. And this is where, I know a lot of you love the company. It's done really well for you recently. And I'm not someone that's trying to tell you buy or sell, because you got to do what's best for you. But my thought is, and this is just a gut feeling, is we know that this company had a unique situation as a direct listing where it locked up shares. In fact, 80% of the shares can't be traded. And they won't be able to be traded until after their earnings for the fiscal year of 2020 are reported, which again, the fiscal year ends on December 31st, but we don't have the exact reporting date for when the earnings will be released. So that could be late January, early February. And then 3 days after that, that's when the shares can start trading. When I see this run up, and again, not seeing enough to really justify it for me, to say what's given it the momentum, other than that it was trading at a really fair price, had some good news, decent news come out to push it up, but still not seeing to this $20 range. And my concern is, when you start hearing all of the news, is it a situation where the funds that have money into it the investors that have money into it, but to have shares that can't be traded. Is this a way to get that price up higher as we get to the lockup and then the potential to sell? Or for people that have shares right now that are tradable, so they're into that 20% give or take, to get the shares up, sell it before the lockups end, where we know is typical. More shares hit the market, the demand may stay the same, the price will go down. And so that's where I think I would be concerned at. So while I am not telling you to sell, if you think the company's good long term, it's going to be good. If you're worried about the price of the shares in the more near term, I would keep a very close look on what the share price does. Because when it comes down to it, you can say the company's valuable and you want to keep it no matter what. And I could use an analogy of gold. I could have a gold nugget and it's going to have value till the end of time. However, do I want to spend $100 for that gold nugget, or do I want to have $1 million for it, which I will never get to that $1 million back? I wouldn't live long enough to get that valuation to get up there. So you always want to get at the right price. And so what I'm saying here is, I think Palantir is an intriguing company, and I've talked about it a lot on the channel for a couple of reasons. One is because there's been a lot of interest from you guys on it, and two is I'm intrigued by it. It's just a unique company in some ways, and I feel like it's one that, I want to learn more about. And so while I say this every time, can't predict the future, I do want to be careful. When I start seeing this valuation go up, it starts to feel like there's an effort of release of information that sort of pumps up the price. And then before us regular people know about it, people are starting to sell off. So they're capturing the gains. We as investors have the stock, we're feeling good about it. We know we're coming into a period of time where there's going to be a lot more shares hitting the market. That can make the price go way down. And so where right now, some of you are showing 100% gains in where you're at, that number could go significantly down. And so you just have to think about that. I'm not offering you any strategy. Again, some people will take some profits and keep some shares. That's one of those ways to sort of hedge yourself a little bit. Again, I'm not telling you what to do. You could ride the company, all the shares you got, and keep acquiring them. And again, in 10 years, you could say I was completely wrong to be a little bit nervous. But in the short term, I think there's some concerns out there, at least for me, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. So again, that's what this channel is about, me trying to give you a little bit of information, but also trying to give you some views that I have from some of the experiences I have from investing in companies for over 20 years. But as I always say, can't predict the future, so I could be completely wrong. So what I'd like for you guys to do is go into the comments and tell me why you think the stock is up. Do you agree with what I said, or do you completely disagree with it? Again, I can take disagreements. I love the discussion part of it. The thing I always just say is be respectful of opinions. I'm always just curious to know what you guys are thinking. We have a lot coming up on the channel in the next few weeks. As you know, I just released that big video talking about 5 upcoming IPOs, all big ones, all unicorns. We'll be talking more about those for sure. If you haven't seen that video, by the way, check it out again. And if you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed, we'd love to have you join us. Really just looking to continue to grow the community and do more here. So again, I thought today would be a good day to talk a little bit about Palantir. I know a lot of you guys in the US, we're heading to Thanksgiving, so a lot of you might be thankful that you own some stock in them. But again, we always want to take a look at where we're at and always evaluate. I've learned over the years, I've been happy with stocks, I sit on them, and I wish I didn't. So anyways, I just wanted to share some information with you guys on that. And with that, I do want to wish you guys all a good rest of your week. For anybody celebrating Thanksgiving, have a great holiday. Stay safe. So again, we'll be back next week. We'll start off with IPO this week, where we'll again give you all the overviews of the companies coming out for the upcoming week. And then again, we know we have a lot coming out with Airbnb, Affirm, Roblox, Wish, DoorDash. And I'm starting to get working on some of those videos that will give you more details on them than what we've talked about already on some of those companies. So anyways, thanks again and listening to this discussion, and hopefully you found it helpful. If you found it helpful, definitely give it a thumbs up, and even if you didn't give it a thumbs up, I'll take it anyway so I can get it. So anyways, thanks again for watching, and until next time, have a great day.